Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. 2 weeks ago, I came on these airwaves, and I tried not to sound preachy, but I think it may have come off that way to some. My point was, like, are we really complaining about things that we don't understand when we talk about LSU's quote-unquote unwillingness to spend money in the NIL game? When you look at defensive linemen that LSU has not gotten in this transfer portal cycle, do you really know what the dynamics were, what the dollar amounts were, who said yes, who said no, and what actually happened before you throw your hands up and really complain about the way LSU's running its football program? Because I felt like when you saw the commitments of Dominic Williams to Oklahoma and Simeon Barrow to Miami, a lot of LSU fans threw a lot of blame around at a lot of people. And I'm not suggesting that your feelings are unfounded. LSU has a need at defensive tackle, and they didn't go get the guys that we thought they might be able to land. And then you heard Brian Kelly come out later and say, we're not going to buy players. And I once again was like, well, yeah, I mean, I get what he's saying, but he's not saying they're completely out of the NIL game. Like, there's plenty of NIL available at LSU. It's obvious because they're recruiting at such a high level in high school. So I'm going to reserve my judgment on my reaction to the information that is available to me, not just exasperation for exasperation's sake. And this is where quality journalism comes in. And Wilson Alexander is a quality journalist right there at The Advocate covering the LSU football beat. And he has got a fantastic piece up at theadvocate.com right now. I highly, highly recommend you go read it because I'm not going to get to all of it. It's really well reported. It's very well done. It's very informative. And there is more to this piece that Wilson wrote than what I'm going to hit on because I'm limited in my time and we're going to move on to other topics. But I'm going to hit on what I considered the high points here from Wilson's reporting. He was able to speak with someone with knowledge of the Bayou Traditions Collective that spoke under the condition of anonymity so that he or she could speak freely on the topic. And the first number that comes out from this person on the inside that Wilson spoke with is the number that LSU allocated for the football team in 2023 and 2024. In 2023, Bayou Traditions allotted about $4 million to the football team. This year, that number has doubled. It is $8 million that LSU has ready to roll in Bayou Traditions for this team. Now, that source suggested that the median, meaning the middle, obviously, of the SEC expenditures moving forward is going to be about $10 million. The high end's going to be 13 to 15. The lower end's going to be 4 or so. And then if you look at the other conferences outside of the SEC and Big Ten, you're looking closer to $4 million for a lot of those programs. These are rough numbers, but you kind of understand that LSU's swimming in a pool that's larger, well, it's deeper than most of the teams in college football, but maybe not quite at the top of the Southeastern Conference. Now, Austin Thomas, LSU staffer who's the general manager of the football program, spoke on the record with Wilson for this story. And one of the quotes that stood out to me from Austin Thomas said that retention is the biggest key of all of this. And that is, to me, a telling quote about the philosophy that is held by the higher-ups in the LSU football program. We are not going to be in the business of going in the transfer portal and tossing around $1.3 million to get somebody to come in here for 6 months. You can earn a bunch of money at LSU, but here's the model. That's Harold Perkins. That's Will Campbell. That's Emory Jones. That's Jaden Daniels. You show up here, you do the things that we ask you to do from a development standpoint, you produce on Saturdays, there is plenty of money in these coffers over here to get you paid. And that's the way they want to do it. It's not necessarily a flat-out inducement up front, let's go. That's what we feel like, and I'm just guessing, but guessing based on some things that have been said now that we're 3 years in the rearview mirror. That's kind of what happened in College Station. We think there's a lot of money being thrown around for one-year mercenaries at Ole Miss. And it's not to suggest that's the wrong way to do it. It's just not the way that LSU wants to do it. They want to recruit high school players at a very high level, which they're doing. They want to get those players into their system for 3 and 4 years, and there is money available to you right there. Now, as Wilson continues with his reporting, Dominic Williams and Simeon Barrow, as this anonymous source within Bayou Traditions, he said those two guys in December, when the transfer portal opened, would have commanded about $400,000 to be signed. They entered in the spring portal window when there are very, very few defensive linemen to be had. We know this because we've been talking about defensive linemen for a month now. And they were both asking for 7-figure deals. And that right now is a non-starter for Brian Kelly and his football program. And I'm not telling you what's right or wrong. I'm just telling you what's being considered here. Because you could make a really good case that, hey, you don't have good enough defensive tackles to compete at a championship level. You need to get one of these guys. You have $8 million allotted for this team. You need to make sure that this guy gets his $1.1 million. And I wouldn't tell you you're wrong, just the way that you feel. But I can also sympathize with Brian Kelly going, we're building a program this way. We've made these promises to these players in our program that if you come in and do things the right way, you'll be compensated based on our collective and the great opportunities that are around here in Baton Rouge. And we're not going to just jump at the most available mid-tier player because we're desperate and pay him double what you just got. Because you don't want upheaval in the locker room. There was upheaval in that locker room in 2020, in 2021. There was some upheaval at the end of last year on defense. You're trying to steady the ship. And this goes back to the point that I made 2 weeks ago when I was talking about all this. There has never been a more volatile time in college locker rooms because of the transfer portal and NIL. The grass is always greener, and you can have your roster absolutely flip on its head and be gutted overnight if you don't watch it. And as enticing as it might be to go try to stretch the purse strings to get that one guy to come in, at what cost? Both financially and in your locker room. It's a tough balance to strike. These coaches make a ton of money, but it is a tough balance to strike. The last piece that was interesting to me in this piece by Wilson Alexander in The Advocate on LSU's collective and where LSU stands in the NIL game was the grassroots portion of it, as T-Bob said this morning. Basically, to just dumb it down, it's Joe Fan chipping in with monthly increments that are doable for whatever financial situation you may be in, whether that's $25 a month, $50 a month, $100 a month, whatever the case may be, whatever you can chip in. And if you can get 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 fans on board with smaller increments monthly, that all of a sudden adds up pretty quickly to a nice chunk of change that you can sling around. The question is, are LSU fans willing to do that? Ole Miss has kind of made this Grove Collective a really cool thing. They've got a bunch of merchandise. They've got things you can purchase where you get the goods and some goes to the collective and players and whatnot. And they've done a really good job at engaging their fan base in the Grove Collective. That's something you can be a part of. It's something that it's an identity for them. And it's obviously paying dividends because they're able to get a lot of transfers that I don't think most people thought that Ole Miss would be in the market for when this whole thing started. The Grove Collective is going. Can that happen for LSU fans? Incidentally, if that's something you didn't know was possible and you'd like to do it, you can. BuyETraditions.com, it's all right there. You can sign up and start to contribute a little bit if you feel like that's something you want to do with your extra money. But in a time where we're looking at costs of things, and there are a lot, people are trying to make sure their finances are in order. Are you willing to step up and give a portion of your money to 20-year-old kids? T-Bob said this morning, he's like, I don't know if that's something I'm really excited about. The last piece of this puzzle that I want to talk about, and we'll kind of wrap the discussion, is, man, this is not have anything to do with LSU. This is just the scene as a whole. I can get on board fully with owners of professional sports teams negotiating with 40, 50, 65-year-old agents in a salary cap structured sports. That's a pretty black and white situation, and you get up there and you negotiate the deal, and the money is the money. And I can see and completely get on board with. I do not envy at all the people within college football organizations, college basketball organizations, those are probably the two that are most applicable, that are negotiating seven-figure deals with 20-year-olds and the people around them who oftentimes we know can have a handout. Like, that is a volatile spot that I don't want any part of. I know what I was doing when I was 20. Nobody needed to be negotiating multi-million-dollar deals with me. And that, to me, seems not fun and potentially comical. So it's a whole new world. A lot of us, myself very, very much included, don't exactly know how all this works and what those discussions sound like. But it's a lot of money, and it's happening everywhere. And I don't think anybody's certain where things are headed with how that market will look based on return on investment and how anxious boosters and fans are to continue to cut checks as we move year after year after year. Because once that $8 million is gone for this football season, you got to have more for next year and more for the next year and more for the next year. How long does that cycle go? I'm not sure. Probably depends on how your team performs on the field. And we won't learn that until starting up in September. So great story from Wilson Alexander over at The Advocate about LSU's collective Bayou Traditions and how the NIL game works down here in Baton Rouge. Highly recommend head over to the website and check that out, because I did not hit on nearly all of the talking points that Wilson got to, but it was really interesting stuff. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.